Welcome to today's discussion. It's Fashion Connect Africa, and it's all about connecting Africa. And the theme of our discussion is Africa's fashion, past, present, and the future. So I'm going to start with you, Nora. 4 decades in the business. I'm sure you've seen it all. What kind of challenges would you say you faced when you were building your brand and setting up your business?
In 4 decades, it's been sweat, it's been tears, but it's been pure joy. We're talking about quality. And for me, my mantra is that I will not sell to another what I will not buy. And clothing, the right kind of clothing, must look right inside, as if you want to wear it inside out. So that was a big challenge. And what I did to overcome this was to establish a training institution. That was the Sleek Fashion Institute. Now we have the Sleek Institute of Creativity and Technology. And then the next thing was access to finance. Now, access to finance was such a major challenge because in the country at the time, people thought fashion was entertainment. They didn't see it as serious business. But I tell you, the clothing and textile and fashion industry generates more employment in this world than any other industry. And the giants, economic giants like the US, like Asia, like China, they got into the industrial world through manufacturing, through garments and textiles. So that was a big problem. And I'm glad to see Mrs. Rawlings here. I had to actually go to the presidency to see President Rawlings at the time to appeal to him that I had an order for 10,000 pieces of my own designs, 4 of my designs, for the US. And we couldn't let this go because this was going to open doors. This was in 1994. This was going to open doors for Ghana. And fortunately for me, he being as innovative and as creative as he is, he thought, he needed to put a foot in there. And I'm happy to say that I was able to pay back that facility in 2 months. It opened the doors for private sector to access the TIP loan, it was called. So that was a major challenge overcome. In the 90s, the EU office here in Ghana had to sponsor me to take my designs to Paris, to Dusseldorf. It was over $20,000 per each participation. But thank God, as I said, quality was a hallmark of everything that I did, apart from the creativity. And I got that sponsorship for 3 years running. But I and the late Kofi Ansah and others, thank you, we decided now we wanted to bring the market to Africa. It was a good decision, but unfortunately, we must learn to work together. Because we did it one time and it didn't work too well. Because what we discovered was we went out on the international arena. Beautiful, fascinating designs. We actually introduced color into what you see in spring, summer, especially in the fall and winter. It was us who did it in the early 90s. But then, coming to Africa to do business seemed like going out into the jungle. You know what the media does all the time.
Yes.
So we decided to bring this here.
Yeah.
But it wasn't easy. And it's still not easy for the young ones. There's so much creativity. The vibrancy in our textile and everything else. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Nora. Very wise words of wisdom from Nora. Abrima, you run an artisan-based label, Studio 189. You're the co-founder. Can you identify with any of the challenges Nora has mentioned?
My story is a little bit different, but I fully concur. I am half American, half Ghanaian. My father's from here, my mother is from there. And I decided to come back a few years ago. I came back in 2012. And one of the reasons, very much tied to what you've just said, is that I was working for various luxury companies. The most recent was Bottega Veneta within the Gucci group. And I saw how much there was a commitment to crafts and techniques and artisans, techniques passed down from generation to generation, and the preservation of crafts, and how much people really valued it and were willing to spend money without negotiating for the price of those goods, which meant that the people along the value chain were able to support themselves, send their families to school, take care of their families without having to ask for charity money. And so when I would come back or go travel in other places and visit my family, I would see so many people oftentimes having a trouble, as you were also pointing out, Nora, reaching a market, cracking the glass ceiling, and developing their skill sets. So I eventually decided to leave in honor of a project that I was doing in the Democratic Republic of the Congo for the opening of the City of Joy, where women who had been the victim of rape and sexual violence were making this incredible arts, incredible crafts, and they were taking the proceeds and they were investing in agriculture, feeding their kids, sending their kids to school. And I thought, about a year later, there was a project called 1 Billion Rising, and V-Day said, 1 in 3 women will be raped and sexually violated in her lifetime, which means 1 billion women. And so she asked for 1 billion people to take a stance and rise, and we said fashion could rise, and you could take control of the value chain. And every time a consumer votes, they vote with their dollar, and they're voting about what kind of world they want to live in, what kind of communities they want to support. And so that's what we set out to do. So we said fashion could rise. I came back, we built a factory that's currently in the North Industrial area. We work with lots of artisans that specialize in different techniques, for example, batik. And to your point about developing the textile industries, which I completely agree with, at the time we were seeing so many people importing fabrics as opposed to honoring all the incredible fabrics and the incredible techniques that are everywhere. We try very much not to do it, both for sustainability reasons and for economic development reasons. So we go all the way from organic cotton throughout the value chain, and for us a big focus is on tying the dots between the consumer, who is now changing, as you spoke about the next generation, and the producer. And I think that here we had an incredible advantage, because what a lot of people don't realize is that fashion is the number 2 polluter in the world, behind oil and gas, how much fashion pollutes and how much it impacts. So if we don't take control of our value chain, not only are people stealing designs, but we're also polluting our own world, our own territory. They're extracting resources and we're not developing it enough here, and they're taking it away, and it causes pollution into small villages and communities. And so often the consumer doesn't even know, because there's so many people between the producers and the consumers in the fashion industry that are making choices for us. So from a manufacturing point of view, as you asked, I think education is super important for people to understand the value of what they have and what it means. So just as a small example, 1 t-shirt consumes 2,700 liters of water. That is 2 years of drinking water. So every time you shop at H&M, for example, or you buy something and you don't know who's making your clothes, you're voting for a world where maybe your children will not have access to water, or maybe your water will be polluted. But why? You could be making incredible crafts using incredible techniques where you can know exactly who made your clothes, and you can trace every single step of the value chain, and everybody can develop and prosper from that. And that's what I believe in. And I think that a huge part of that in terms of a challenge is, 1, developing education to me is number 1. 2, changing the narrative and changing the way the consumers purchase overseas and locally to really honor the crafts that we have here, and more importantly, to actually buy them at the real price so everybody can benefit economically and socially, and then I think everybody will prosper.
Thank you very much, Abrima. Challenges abound, but there's always hope, there's always a way out. Education is key. Yes, there's challenges with skills, access to finance, access to markets, but there's definitely a way we can all put our heads together and overcome them. Let's talk about intra-African trade. This is Fashion Connect Africa, and we should be connecting all the dots in Africa. Now, statistics say that in Africa, we just export 17% of total exports to each other within Africa, as compared to Asia, which does 59%. So let's think about that. We are clearly not selling to each other, connecting with each other. Kweku, I'm coming to you.
Okay,
the chocolate brand has mass appeal, both locally and internationally. But are you hitting the other 53 African countries?
Good evening, everybody. Sorry, I'm a little bit under the weather, but thank you for the question. I think, I'm going to answer this question by going back to where we started from. We started with a clear vision of becoming the biggest and the most influential brand in lifestyle in the world from Africa. And we believe that the only way we're going to do this was to connect the 1.5 plus billion people in Africa. And this is what we've been doing ever since we commenced. Interestingly, we are now in 13 African countries now, and we're still growing. 13.
Wow, that deserves a round of applause.
Yeah. And the point here is very simple. 2015, I decided to travel around Africa. I couldn't understand how China was being able to do everything they're doing, and all we were supposed to be left with was 30 million people. just wasn't making mathematical sense to me.
Yeah.
So, we started with South Africa as a corridor to enter the Southern African market. Now we're in Zimbabwe and Zambia. We're going to Angola and Botswana hopefully next year.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We also visited Kenya, which is a very tough market. Very interesting though, but very tough. And also the idea is to open up that corridor to the East African. We've done visits to Uganda, we're in Tanzania. We're also expanding to Rwanda soon. And of course, West Africa.
Okay.
Ghana, Nigeria, we're just about penetrating into the Francophone countries. Also in Sierra Leone and Liberia. I think the point here is very simple. When we chose the name Chocolate, we wanted to touch on the aspirations of Africa, how the Africa we want should be like, should look like. And so the only way we could be successful is to connect all the dots.
Yeah.
I quite remember when we first started and people kept on asking why we keep on using so much buttons. And I was telling them that it's a symbol. Most of the clothing we're all wearing today, we're able to close them, we're able to stick them together because of buttons.
Yep.
And so for us, a symbol like that was supposed to serve as that beacon of hope for whatever business that we do, whatever focus of our business, to try and then find out what is similar amongst all of us as Africans, and then sort of explore those options, and then also figure out those particular dots that are also different, and sort of bridge that gap. And that's what I think we are doing.
Well done. I think you're walking the talk, so well done. I think a round of applause for Chocolate.
Thank you very much.
So let's go on to job creation. Now, we have a youthful population in Africa. And depending on whose statistics you read, we have over 50 or 60% of our population between the ages of 15 and 35. Now, of course, this leads to a high unemployment rate. Once again, depending on whose statistics you're reading, it could be from 20% all the way to 50%. Okay. Now, quickly understand that now Chocolate Clothing has a capacity to process over 1,000 orders a month. That's huge. And of course, to do that, you must have created quite a number of jobs. Is there potential to create even more?
Now, most definitely. I definitely would like to say a big congratulations to my big sister here. I mean, I got into this business knowing she is the godmother. And she's definitely set the pace for all of us and for the line of business that we've chosen to enter. I've in my own small quota, and I'm hitting on this not just to talk about skill set, but mindset.
Yep.
I'm very big on mindsets. The biggest problem we have in Africa is never skill sets, it's mindsets.
Yep.
I mean, you go to certain parts of a breeze, certain parts, every single artisan I've come to meet knows his job. In fact, they put that person, like, I was shocked. I go to Sierra Leone, and majority of the builders there are Ghanaians. You'll be shocked. Yeah, I'm telling you. You go to like Kenya, and I'm like, wait, isn't the same artisan who probably when he was in Ghana, he won't show up on time?
Yep. So change location, the mindset changes.
The mindset changes.
Which shouldn't be the case.
Which should never be the case.
So what are we doing wrong? What can we change?
So for me, a lot of the interviews, a lot of the talks that I've done around the African continent, and different platforms that I've been given, I keep on talking about mindsets. We need to understand that, as Nora said, the creative industry, not even fashion, the creative industry has it's so lucrative and the opportunities are endless. And so the more and more people actually tune their minds towards the beneficial aspects and tune their mindset that, okay, unless I'm a lawyer, I can't think in a particular way.
Yeah.
Unless I'm a doctor, I can't think in a particular way. That has to change.
Okay.
Yeah, so
Definitely, mindset is a key thing. For
mindset
us
is my biggest.
in every aspect
biggest-
of business, not just
in every
fashion.
aspect of business,
Okay.
especially within our
Especially
creative
for
space.
fashion. Okay. Yes. Quickly.
I completely agree with Kwiku. I think it's a big lesson that I learned also with the factory that we have. I remember there was a point when we were having some challenge, and somebody said something extremely interesting and extremely wise to me that just completely changed the way I thought about the situation. He said, Abrima, this is about mindset and culture. In other countries, a person comes to work and a tailor, and they look at the machine, and they know they're more expensive than the tailor. I'm valued higher than the tailor. Here, the person is at the machine, and they know that the tailor is more expensive than them. So what does that say about the person?
Exactly.
And who's in control? Is it the machine or is it the person?
Yeah.
How are you valuing the person? And that really touched me because it made me change the way I was looking at the person who was looking at the machine.
Yeah.
And a huge part, I think, of what needs to happen is you need exposure. The only way you learn is by doing.
Yeah.
If people don't let you try, if they don't let you fail, you have to fail to win.
Well, it's the apprenticeship model, isn't it?
And you have to try.
Proven to work.
Absolutely. And you have to try to do it in lots of different countries. And you have to be exposed and you have to be connected. Because if you don't try, you can't learn. And it's not just someone teaching you and saying, you have to do it this way. But you actually have to try, and you have to make mistakes, and you have to have orders, and you have to either do very well or have rejections. And I think that fundamentally, we have to allow people to try by engaging the consumers and getting more orders from everywhere, so that people can learn, because you learn by doing, and that's how you learn. And I think that helps to establish the culture. It makes you understand that if the line is crooked, I won't buy it. It makes you understand, or the other way around, that it's artisan work and it doesn't matter if it's crooked because it's special. But the only way you know is by doing. And I think culture is huge, because I do think they know their job. But I think that they have to know that their job is valuable and that somebody values it and that they're allowed to fail. Because all these other countries we're talking about, Brazil, China, the development of the denim industry in the United States, they either failed or closed their borders before they succeeded. And they tried. And we have to try and try and try. And I think that's a fundamental part of changing culture.
Thank you very much, Abrima. So as a final comment, as we wrap up, the fourth industrial revolution is upon us. There's 3D printing, there's data analytics, there's artificial intelligence. Fashion is not left out. So in 20 years from now, in 2040, if you could all give me in just 1 or 2 words what you think the fashion industry is going to look like. So maybe I'll start with Nora. 1 or 2 words, we're in 2040. What do you see?
I'll just slip in quickly, though, that about skills development. We're talking about generating jobs and so on. One important thing is to create training, develop the skills of the young ones in the workplace, either in the studio or in the factory and so on. That's when you bring out the best in them. They get acquainted to what they need to do, the kind of equipment they would use. And at Sleek Garments Export Limited, I'm CEO of that company, which I run with my daughter, Natasha. We actually give training. 70% of training or skills development is about practical work. And that's what will help to change mindsets and so on. It includes a discipline. And you get punished. You lose money if you don't show up on time. If you're late by 5 minutes, you could lose an hour's day's wages, stuff like that. It works. Okay. There's so much happening. There's so much happening now. Research has been able to discover coating for fabrics that can actually neutralize its degradation, make it last longer. There are fabrics that can adapt to the weather.
So in 2040, what do you see?
So I see this happening for us in Africa.
Fabrics that can adapt to the weather.
Yes, exactly. So you don't need such a huge wardrobe, especially if you travel a lot. You don't need such a huge wardrobe. There's a possibility of even creating footwear. I love your footwear, Chocolate. That could actually be connected to Google, to your phone. You go wandering around. Some of us travel out on business, but you want to explore as well. So you don't get lost.
So shoes that can track your whereabouts and fabrics that can adapt to the weather.
But then the thing, as Abrima said, is that we need to invest in all of this. As a country, we need to invest in it. We mustn't take things for granted. We're sitting on a gold mine. Look at this room, the beautiful colors and all that we can see. But we seem to be taking things for granted, and we need to wake up to it. Because others come here and they take away. and they're
Okay.
doing big things with
All
it.
right. Thank you
That's
very
all I
much. Kweku, 2 words. African
words.
fashion in 2040.
Well, I think social media and IT has started
Social media
that
and
quest,
IT.
yes. And so to the day, I know it started where we wouldn't need tape measures or tape
tape
measuring
measures.
tapes to be
Okay.
chasing clients from Weja to Amasaman to go
Okay.
take their measurements.
All right.
So I'm looking forward to more of a personalized service that will make our work and then
Easier.
their request easier.
Okay.
I'm still thinking about it.
Okay. Well, you're out of time. I bring my 2 words. African fashion in 2040.
I think it can go either 2 ways.
Okay.
Where I think humanity is, well, we know is at the verge of a possible mass extinction by 2040. Not to sound doom and glooming, but that's true. Statistically,
Okay.
we're going in a wrong.
So in 2040, either
By,
we are
but
all
by
dead.
2040, we either could be the leaders of that through innovation and doing amazing work because we have all the raw materials and we have the skill sets and we have the creativity using technology, for example, to use bacteria to die and use less water. Or the other way around is we can use too much plastic and export too many resources and be a part and contribution of a mass extinction. And I think fashion can play a crucial role because, as I said, it's the number 2 polluter in the world,
Okay.
contributing 10% of CO2. And I think Ghana and West Africa and Africa have everything it needs to be number 1 and to be at the forefront of change by 2040.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. A round of applause for my panelists. You've been great. It's been an inspiring discussion. And I think I'll hand over now to our hosts, KKD and Bella Mundi. So maybe another round of applause as we exit the stage.